Welcome back to Roster the People, Summer Edition. 32 teams in 32 days. We're getting close, boys. We're getting close. We're moving along. Not counting today. We got 5 shows left, and we'll have done them all. So we're getting close. Neil Smith, Jason Draven, Mason Cameron, back again, back at you. Today is the 16th of August. So just to get that out of the way right off the top. If anything we say sounds a little bit weird, that would be why. So hope you're enjoying preseason week 2. And we will do the wrap-up show. It's going to be pre-recorded. It's going to be uploaded very early in the morning for you on the 31st, so you can enjoy all of us. You can enjoy us updating all of our takes that need to be updated since we started this several months ago. So, with that, once again, this is your draft recap guide. Fun fact for the audience: I've done like 5 of these in a row, and my brain is jello. I'm going to start this again.
With brotherly love?
Yeah, brotherly love. Brotherly love. You know what? That's what we're going to talk about, Jason. We're going to talk about brotherly love today. That's what we're going to – the old show with all 3 Lawrence brothers. It's going to be more entertaining than what we were actually here to do. Here, let's try this again. This is your 2024 Fantasy Draft Primer. We've been going through all the teams, updating all the rosters, and getting you ready for your draft, which should be coming up in about a week from when you hear this. This is all centered around 12-team PPR. You'll hear us reference a lot of ADPs and a lot of rankings. Those come courtesy of Fantasy Pros. We are a Fantasy Pros affiliate. Jason and I are part of the ECR, the Expert Consensus Ranking. Our rankings get slushed into that. And then we will use that as a baseline for everyone. And then if we have our own individual rankings that are dramatically different, we will reference that along the way. We will also do notes that are for non-PPR should they become relevant. We've done more kick and punt return analysis this year with the new kickoff rule that I've done since 2009. I know that tells you a little bit how old I am, but there you go. Like that's where we are. So that's what we're here to do.
Baby. Devin Hester. That's the reason he brought it
Devin
up.
Hester. There it is. I was thinking more Randall Cobb, but
really?
Randall Cobb rookie year was right
Okay.
around that time when he was still running kicks for them. We have derailed this show twice and have not started it yet in reality. The Pittsburgh Steelers. I referenced yesterday, for those of you who heard yesterday's show, that there are 2 teams in Pennsylvania. There's the good one, and then there's this one. So this is going to be interesting. This is an interesting thing here. So we've got quite a bit to go through. But yeah, as we do, we'll start with quarterback. A lot of new things here. We talked yesterday about how Kenny Pickett is no longer on this team. He didn't have a far move. He only had to go to the other side of the state. He probably didn't even sell his house. And then now Mason and I have to have a conversation here. Because the Pittsburgh Steelers got Russell Wilson, who was basically being paid by the Denver Broncos.
For free.
So Russell Wilson is now the starter with many, many finger quotes and asterisks on the end of that. Because he's basically being paid by the Denver Broncos to not play for the Denver Broncos anymore. High knees on a plane, Mason.
I mean, in a way, it could end up being a 5-hedge strategy by sticking the quarterback who was struggling so much with another team. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. Let's just say it's a. I will say this. To be fair to Russell, I like his new fit with Arthur Smith more than whatever they were trying to figure out in Denver.
Yeah, it wasn't going well. That is something to note too. There's a new coach. Well, I should say offensive coordinator.
I was like, whoa.
Yeah, new offensive coordinator. And it's Arthur Smith. Deal with it. Yeah. Get ready for this again. There is rarely have you seen someone more frustrating from a fantasy perspective than Arthur Smith. I reference all those Falcons teams over the last couple of years. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be frustrating. And you're just going to have to understand that this is your life now. I think it also explains a lot about some of the ADPs and rankings that we're about to go through, because there's definitely some weirdness. And I think some of that is down to Arthur Smith. But yeah, I agree with that, Mason. Arthur Smith should be able to figure out how to get something out of Russell Wilson.
It'll at the very least be a better fit than the scheme that Sean Payton was trying to fit. It was just square peg in a round hole type thing.
Your note here is that Smith gets a lot of garbage, but his QB situation was bad last year. And I'm like, correct.
That's the big thing, is that Smith gets a ton of flack, and to be fair, play calling at times was questionable, but I think play calling at times for anybody would be questionable if you dialed up as many deep balls as they had that were just off target. They were towards the tops of the league. It's something like 80 plus off target balls of over 20 yards. Like I get that, they are like, hey, you have all these options to throw to. Why can't we get them the ball? Well, it's because the guy who touches the ball every play was not capable of doing such. And, to be fair, Russell Wilson loves his deep ball. We know he loves his deep ball. We know he loves
you were
to
going to phrase that
move
differently,
around.
and I was going to be like, whoa, get the hook. Get the drop button.
No. I talked to your lawyer before the show. We're fine.
Okay, good.
So,
good.
I mean, so I think while it is alarming, and granted, his ADP isn't necessarily like pushing him to be drafted. He very well could be undrafted in most of your leagues.
It's close.
But this might be something worth monitoring if they can figure something out. Now, he hasn't been in camp that long. We really don't know how it's going to look. He's supposed to be starting this weekend in their preseason week 2 game. That'll tell us a lot. So tap in with us for the wrap-up show, and we will probably be talking about this quarterback situation.
They'll have made a decision by then.
They'll have made a decision, and we'll be able to kind of confirm or see if we can be more encouraged or not. On the other side, though, you just have Justin Fields.
Hold on, because we'll do it this way. So real quick, so Russell Wilson is on the team, obviously, as we mentioned. He opens as the QB 28. That would be 192 overall by ranking. His ADP is 185. So to your point, Mason, he's like right on the edge of draft range. And then because this had to be more complicated, I think there's something going on behind the scenes where there's like a power struggle, and Mike Tomlin's part of that. Because then they go out and get Justin Fields, who Mike Tomlin has been after for a while. He is effusive with his praise of Justin Fields. And it's interesting to see that you would get both. I get that one, you're not really paying, and Justin Fields was also cheap. But it's weird to me that you would do this, and you would have like a competition with these two veterans. Like, okay, if that's what you want to do, go ahead. But it's just strange. So
play them both same time.
Yeah, sure. Okay,
I mean,
kick return. Okay, kick return analysis. We're going straight into kick return analysis already. Yeah, we're that far in the tank.
Or running back, he could play that too.
Why would you that's the one thing they have. The one thing they have is running back.
Yeah, it could just be another portion. And now I have 3. Look how that works. And they're all good.
Jason, I'm going to warn you. I have my finger over the dump button. It's right here. You keep going the way you're going. You keep going. Keep doing what you're doing. It's the whole Lawrence's thing. You got me all twisted. You got me. But yeah, they brought in Justin Fields, who weirdly opens as the QB 31. He would be 224 by ranking. So he's outside of draftable range by ranking in the ECR. What's funny is his ADP is 175. So he's actually being drafted ahead of Russell Wilson. So it's like the public doesn't know. The expert consensus says it should be Russell, but no one knows. And then Mason, you brought it up in the pre-show. Fields did not help himself the other day.
No, yeah. It's been tough. Fields had great reports at the start of camp. They were praising that he was doing everything they were asking of him. That kind of all fell off the rails when they got into their game, and he put 2 of his 6 snaps on the ground in exchanges from under center. Now, to be fair, yeah, these guys take a lot of snaps, especially young quarterbacks take a lot of snaps out of the shotgun, and Fields has been no different. But you would hope that they would have that figured out by the time they got onto the field, where that wouldn't be an issue, such a glaring issue.
Whatever excuse you want to make, you can't fumble a third of your snaps.
Exactly.
I don't care. There's no way to justify it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jason, do you have a preference for any of this? Who do you like?
Well, Fields is more active for fantasy, so I much prefer Fields.
There is that.
But
what do you think is going to happen?
Tomlin wins games. He doesn't care how it's done. Like he's going to go 9-8 no matter who's under center. So.
Oh God, he probably will go 9-8 too. Oh God,
it's annoying, isn't it?
He probably will. That's probably real.
The
jokes are real now.
The
memes are real.
I'm just waiting until Jason gives the the flag plant. He's like, Justin Fields, wide receiver 2 in this offense. He's gonna have this many touchdowns. He's gonna end up top 30 wide receiver.
And then it happens.
And
my head explodes. Because we live in a simulation that needs to be rebooted.
Well, I mean, we've already kind of seen what they did with Taysom Hill. This could be Justin Fields. Could be the same thing. I mean, they're similar, right?
No, but
that was so rude.
No,
that was so rude.
So
man.
rude. He's been rude all. Mason, you have to go listen to the last. We did all of these in a row today for people playing along at home. So it's a little. This is the last one, and it's getting a little weird. And Jason has been. He has furnace blasted a couple people today. Jason has roasted a couple people, and I don't think he means it the way that it's coming out of his mouth. But he has absolutely thrown some shade at some people over the last couple shows where I'm like, wow, dude, that was I was like, that was so rude. Like what you just said about some of these people. He was comparing people that are not comparable at all by pedigree. And I'm like, if I was this individual, I would be so offended by what you just said to me. I would be so upset. I remember what it was. He was comparing Devin Singletary to Saquon Barkley. And I'm like, I would be offended out of my mind if I was Saquon Barkley. I would be like, dude, you want to go? Do I need to take my shirt off?
Throw it.
Do we need to go outside? Do I need to handle this? That is not a comparable vehicle. So it's go watch that show. Go watch the Giant show. It was actually a lot of fun because it was just there's nothing to report. So it's 6 minutes of actual analysis and 14 minutes of BS. That's literally what that show was. It was amazing.
Kind of like this one.
A little bit. And we're going to be done here in 6 minutes too, by the way, because I'm telling you right now, I don't really care who the quarterback is at this point because I don't think it's possible to crater out the weapons because there are no weapons that you could crater except for one, and we've seen him play with bad quarterback play his whole career. So there you go. Sneak preview of what you're going to listen to next. I also mentioned that the only thing they have is running backs. Well, that hasn't changed because it's the same two guys. Najee Harris, Jalen Warren.
And Justin Fields.
And no. And no, honey, no. Oh, honey, no. Jason's off the rails. He's had too many Mountain Dews. He's had way too many Mountain Dews. Najee Harris opens as the RB23, translates to 74 overall by ranking. His ADP is 68. Guess what? That's every Najee Harris season. It hasn't changed whatsoever. Jalen Warren, one of the high-end RB2s, who has proven to be very high up the chain as far as elusiveness score. He's got immaculate hands, and he can run between the tackles a little bit. Okay, just spoiler alert. Jalen Warren is one of my favorite players. Just I'm biased in this regard. Jalen Warren opens as the RB25. 78 overall is what he would be by ranking. His ADP is 84. I am still very bullish on Jalen Warren. Najee Harris, I feel like that's sticker price. Jalen Warren, I feel like you could do better. I feel like he could outkick that. And it wouldn't even take that much to get there.
I mean, last year he beat out Harris.
I know.
Fantasy.
I know. And that's where I'm like, Jalen Warren is the one that, of any of the things on this team, Jalen Warren is the thing that I am recommending. And it is the thing that I am most excited about.
Yeah, I agree. I think that you see more per touch potential than Harris, who this value that he continues to have is based more off of volume. Mm-hmm. And he's gotten that volume in the past, but not so much with Jalen Warren kind of springing onto the scene more and more. And one thing that we've talked about in a previous show is that backs don't age by years. Backs age by touches. And one of the big highlights is that the back with the most touches over the last 3 regular seasons is Najee Harris. And that's a tough draw. That's going to beat him up. And they haven't been that great blocking for him. That's been a hard 280 plus touches a season.
He's had to carry the load for sure.
Right. Well, I mean, what I would like to sit here and, hope for is that you really get him for, the whole season and he continues to produce and you get that volume or whatever. But I don't know that you can bank on that, considering that the lifespan of running backs is short in terms of their productivity. He's starting to get to that point where he was saddled up with a ton of carries, so he's going to be aging faster. I just don't see where this returns the value. Like you said, this isn't going to outkick its value, but Jaylen Warren very well could. And when they're in such a similar spot and Warren is a little bit cheaper.
Yeah, right.
You also have to think, guys, they're not going to be leading very many games. They're going to play good defense, but they're not going to be leading a ton of games because their offense is a little bit inept in some key situations and some key positions. So they're going to have to throw. They're going to have to get Jaylen Warren on the field, and that's where I would lean.
Yeah, the only thing that I'm really recommending drafting, honest to God, on this entire team that I'm really recommending drafting is Jaylen Warren. The rest of the team is like, there are a couple things that I wouldn't hate. Like, we'll get into, if you want to get, Pat Freiermuth at a huge discount, okay, that's fine. But that's not going to, if that wins you your league, I will be stunned. Whereas Jaylen Warren, that advice, I could see Jaylen Warren literally winning you your league. Like, because he's such a value and the upside is so immense that I'm actually shocked that people haven't caught up to this yet. Especially after last year, when the incredible pace he was on through like the middle part of the season, it was ridiculous. They were talking about like Najee Harris wasn't playing well. They were talking about, is Najee Harris just done? And it's like, because then you see what Warren's able to do, and it's like, why wouldn't they just put Warren out there? And I'm like, well, I get why, because you'll kill him. So and then there is a third running back, and no, it's not Justin Fields. They did go out and get Cordarrelle Patterson. So they went and got Cordarrelle Patterson, and that's because Arthur Smith is running this, and that's what it is. And hey, guess what? Cordarrelle Patterson's going to run kicks, and he'll be your RB3 when you need him. And if something was to happen to Najee, Cordarrelle Patterson's going to be the guy that's running the ball between the tackles. And that's it. And I don't even view him as a handcuff. He's a special teamer, and he's an RB3. Cool. He has no ADP, by the way, so I wouldn't worry about it. And it's not going to be Field, Jason. Get that pipe dream out of your head. Wide receiver is a wild situation. They don't have Deontay Johnson to kick around anymore. He's in Carolina. So they let that walk. And then now you're rebuilding with a weird group, if you ask me. You have George Pickens, who they have been very high on. They drafted him, and I get it. You've seen the flashes. He opens as the wide receiver 29. I firmly believe if his quarterback play was better, it would be higher. That would translate to 54 overall by ranking. Guess what? His ADP is 55. Anybody want to pound the table for George Pickens?
I mean, I feel like he's going to be the closest one to Cortland Sutton, who Russell Wilson favored last year. So if that's kind of the only upside of him, and Sutton did just fine last year with Wilson.
Sutton had 10 touchdowns, and Pickens is a lot younger and a lot faster than Cortland Sutton. And I say that as a guy who loves Cortland Sutton and has historically. Yeah. But my eyes are not painted on. George Pickens is significantly younger and faster than Cortland Sutton.
Yeah, and Sutton last year was wide receiver 35.
Mason, assuming the Brandon Ayuk deal doesn't happen, which I'm projecting, what do you think about George Pickens? Or do it both ways. Like, what do you think about this?
So I think that's like the real question is you have to understand that the Steelers right now, as it sits on August 16th, are the closest team to having a deal done to acquire Brandon Ayuk. There's talks that there is a deal in place, and it's kind of just ironing out details and seeing if the teams really want to leap forward. But the foundation of the deal is, to my understanding, according to reports, in place. When you look at this wide receiver room, it makes sense why they would be. As much as I think a lot of us like George Pickens, they need a bona fide wide receiver.
Go through the rest of it real quick, Mason, because none of them have ADPs, so they don't matter. None of these people are being drafted.
You're going to get Calvin Austin mostly in the slot. You're going to get Van Jefferson over at the X. Roman Wilson's going to mix into the slot too.
Roman Wilson was their rookie they drafted.
Was their rookie that they drafted. And none of them have ADP. So that's one of the things is when you look at that. This obviously, I think the question is, do they not sign him? What does this do for George Pickens? Personally, I think signing of Brandon Ayuk would help George Pickens. It's going to help clear up coverages for him. And he is actually a very sound receiver. He runs pretty good routes. He's a decent contested catch guy. I mean, he kind of does a little bit of everything. I wouldn't necessarily peg him as like one of the elite receivers in the league, but I would peg him as a guy that, puts in work. He's a tough dude.
He's
He's
a
got
guy
attitude.
who, with more years, could become one of the elite receivers in the league with better quarterback play and a significant and more work. Because this is year 3 for Pickens.
Yeah. So
he's still pretty young.
Right. He can get in more work. And if the situation were better, I think he would be better. And when you get Ayuk, the situation will be better for him. The guy that this hurts out of this wide receiver room is Van Jefferson, who isn't going to see the field anymore, which doesn't matter from a fantasy standpoint because you weren't drafting Van Jefferson anyway. But that's who it's going to hurt more. But the reason why this is relevant is because of the Pickens thing. Does this hurt Pickens? No, I do not think so. I think it'll
take the Ayuk thing out of it. And I come to you and say, Ayuk's not on the team. 5th round pick for Pickens. What do you think?
Absolutely not.
Okay. That's what it is.
Absolutely not. Because you're
a 5th round pick for Pickens right now.
Because
Ayuk is not on the team.
Because you're going from a net negative of an offense in terms of EPA per play, and they will not get above the threshold, the 0 mark, or the league average in EPA per play, especially per drop back, without more talent. That's just, they don't have the running game that's going to force people up. They don't have the quarterback that can make the play regardless. They don't have the receivers that can take pressure off of each other. And that's all without even talking about an offensive line that's been shaky for a few years. There's serious questions about this team. And the safest player, which is a player that I feel like I've faded a lot in conversations that we've had when we talk about the next position on here, is probably where I would go as maybe the safest and the one guy that maybe is going to be worth targeting in this offense, but I guess it'll be something that we see.
Yeah. Jason, anything about any wide receiver?
I'm kind of, again, we talked about kick and punt. This is where it's at again. Calvin Austin.
Okay.
He's shifty. He's quick. If he can get that ball and find a hole, he's gone.
Sure.
That's part of the reason I love
that very
so
specific format. I agree. But only in that very specific format would I agree with this. So yeah, you're not drafting any of these other wide receivers. And to be honest with you, I'm right there with Mason on the Pickens fade. Because unless something happens, because he's a very trendy sleeper this year. There's a lot of people that are expecting him to advance and take the next step. So you are going to have to give up that 5th round pick. There's no way you won't. If you don't, someone in your league 100% will. There's virtually no scenario where he's going to fall to you later on. And in my world, I'm fine. Go ahead. Y'all have fun. I don't want to deal with it.
I think this is a conversation to have in terms of fantasy theory, is that I think when you run into these teams that have one receiver and they're like, this is going to be the guy, they have to throw him the ball because they don't have much else. I don't know that that's helpful from a fantasy standpoint than a guy where the other side of it is, let's just use a team we talked about yesterday in the Eagles, where they have two really good receivers, or other teams that have 3 really good receivers, where we talk about how that opens things up for other guys. While you have less balls to go around, coverage is dictating Jason, don't laugh. Coverage is dictating that they
balls
can't...
and then dictating. I don't know what to tell you, bro.
This is why we can't have nice things.
So anyway.
We can't have nice things. It's ridiculous.
Sorry,
I told you yesterday we were going to do a very professional show for professionals, and we've already gone off the rails.
Let me regain
Third
my
time
ground
that
here.
we've been off the rails in 24 minutes.
So let me just ask you this: would you rather have the guy that is peppered every single time, regardless of if he has separation or if he's too stacked with the safety and underneath coverage? Would you rather have that, or the guy that is going to get single coverage a lot and maybe the ball doesn't go to him when he gets open sometimes because he's got AJ Brown on the other side of him.
Yeah.
But that's the question you have to ask. At
Historically, I will tell you, I want the second scenario.
Right.
But there are limited exceptions to that. One of those exceptions would be Justin Jefferson.
Like true wide receiver ones that
yeah. There are certain players that it transcends it. So there are examples. Like if you're telling me like, oh, would you rather have it's like no, because you're describing like let's talk about a world where Sam Darnold isn't Sam Darnold, right? And you're talking about they have competent quarterback play.
He's competent. He'll work.
No, honey. No. He was one of the least accurate quarterbacks in the league last year, and that is not new. He's been that guy for a long time. Like that's who Sam Darnold is. I'm not rehashing Sam Darnold with you. I'm trying to wrap this show up, not go down that stupid rabbit hole that doesn't matter. Because again, as I've told you, we're trying to focus on fantasy relevant players, and Sam Darnold isn't even close to fantasy relevant players.
Like on this team,
and no, not at all. Like this is why we don't do 5 of these in a day. It's because by this point, the wheels have just come all the way off. This is like the worst show we've done, and it'll be the highest viewed one. I guarantee it.
So pissed.
Steve's gonna be furious. So I'm trying.
Fucking
4 minutes. I'm ending the show in 4 minutes, whether we're done or not. I'm not kidding. Like, so what I'm telling you is that in a world where like it's Kirk Cousins, you know what I mean? I'd rather have Justin Jefferson because Justin Jefferson. I don't care if you bracket Justin Jefferson on every play. He's that good. There's certain exceptions to what you're saying, Mason, but on a broad average, when you don't have a Justin Jefferson, no, I want the guy who's going to get single coverage, who's going to be open.
Yeah.
And you count on the quarterback to move the ball. My greater point here is this. We've covered this at this point. There's no wide receiver. Yeah, Van Jefferson's a real NFL player. Good for him. He matters to the Steelers. Calvin Austin is super fast. He matters to the Steelers. He doesn't matter to you for fantasy. And I'm right there with you. In the 5th round, there's plenty of other players that I'd rather deal with than George Pickens.
Especially later, following him.
Yeah.
Players that are after him, which is annoying.
So the last thing here is this. The tight end is still Pat Freiermuth. Post-hype sleeper, Pat Freiermuth. Great year 2 years ago. Got hurt, was bad last year. Just everything went wrong for Freiermuth. And now this year, he opens as the tight end 13, translates to 113 overall by ranking. I know why that's happening. Arthur Smith. That's why that's happening. Is people see that and they're like, Arthur Smith throws tight end. Oh, Russell Wilson throw tight end. Oh, paint by numbers. His ADP is 127 because the public remembers what it saw last year and was like, yeah. I will tell you right now at 127, I'm a buyer on Pat Freiermuth. But it doesn't matter because it ain't going to win you your league. I just like it at that point. It's a 12th round pick, getting to 13. That's when I'm looking for tight end.
And like you said, if Pickens gets all the coverage, guess who's going to be open?
Yeah, and it's not going to be hard. He's going to run 3 yards and turn around. And that's all I need you to do in PPR.
They're going to run the stick nod. They're going to run the seam. They're going to run him up the seam. He might end up being the focal point of this offense.
That's what I'm saying. Like, he's probably the number 2 or number 3 target getter. Like, Pickens will be 1. And then it's a question of whether or not Pat Freiermuth can out-target Jalen Warren. That's the conversation you're having in terms of 2-3. And so that's the way that it is. I actually am kind of excited about what Pat Freiermuth could be, but it's mostly just because the price tag is so attractive right now. You're talking about a late 12th, early 13th round pick. That's right where I'm looking to double tap tight end. And he's on a team where he could actually matter. It's a weird, sneaky value for where I'm sitting. And then they got Darnell Washington, who is a giant man who does not matter for fantasy purposes. He looks like Andre the Giant. He's huge. Like, doesn't matter for fantasy purposes. That's not his job. He's not out there to play fantasy relevant football. So I'm going to sum up the Steelers from where I sit. I'm not rostering in a draft either Steeler quarterback. I don't want Najee Harris. And there is a point where Najee Harris could fall that I would take him.
Okay.
But I'm at his current ADP. I'm going to do it this way. At current ADPs, I am not really interested in either quarterback, Najee Harris, or George Pickens. At current ADPs, I am pretty interested in Jalen Warren and Pat Freiermuth. And the rest of this team does not matter for fantasy purposes. That's it. That's the whole team.
I second the motion.
Motion thirded.
Motion passes.
Lovely. We're doing it. 15 seconds. I'm getting you out of here. We're going to be out of here 30 seconds on the dot. Tune in tomorrow Who are we talking about tomorrow, Mason?
OPQRST.
What's the alphabet?
I don't
What's the
know.
alphabet?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Hoisted on my own petard. That's what we're gonna do. Keep up the nonsense and have a week.
I'm Tim Kitzer from NBA Jam and NFL Blitz, and you can find all the guys at ImportantNonsense.com. Kaboom!